In the passage that we're in this morning, Luke chapter 16, this is the only place that this is recorded in the New Testament, this story. It's unique to Luke, but it's a story that I want to say the principles that we see here in Luke chapter 16 are found all throughout Scripture, really. And as we go to look at this passage of Scripture, God is challenging the disciples, and He's also challenging the Pharisees who are listening, who reject Him, of course. But He's challenging His disciples, His followers, and all that are listening to use all the resources that the Lord has blessed them with to reach others, to bring others into the kingdom. And it's kind of interesting how He does it in this story. And so I'd like us to just go ahead together, look at this story, read this story together. It's a little long, Luke 16. But then we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the unique things that we see in this passage of Scripture. Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 15. Now, Jesus was also saying to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and this manager was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And he called him and he said to him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an accounting of your management, for you can no longer be manager." And then the manager said to himself, "Oh man, what shall I do since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I'm removed from the management, people will welcome me into their homes." And he summoned each one of his master's debtors, and he began saying to the first, "How much do you owe my master?" And he said, "Well, 100 measures of oil." And he said to him, "Well, take your bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. Then he said to another, "And how much do you owe?" And he said, "Well, 100 measures of wheat." He said to him, "Take your bill and write 80. Now the manager's master praised the unrighteous manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the sons of this age are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the wealth of unrighteousness, so that when it fails, they'll receive you into the eternal dwellings. He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust the true riches to you? And if you have not been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? I'm going to stop there. So Jesus, as we see here, is talking to his disciples in particular. Now the Pharisees are listening, but he's addressing this to the disciples. And so he doesn't say it's a parable. He just starts telling them this story. It's possible that it could be a true story. It could be very possible that it's one that Jesus heard himself, okay? And so what he states here is about this manager. So it's this guy that is put in charge of this rich man's possessions. And it's important that a manager is good and that a manager is faithful to you. If you turn everything over to your manager to make more money for you, right? This guy was not faithful, and he was squandering his master's possessions. And it comes to the master's ears, so to speak. And he says, well, what is this I hear? You're going to give an account? I want to see the books. I want to know exactly what's going on. Matter of fact, you're fired. And so get the books and get them to me. But in the meantime, what this crooked manager does is he says, just what you see there in the text, man, I don't want to beg, and I don't want to dig ditches. I know what I'm going to do. So he thought this through, and he says, you know what? It doesn't matter. I already gave my boss, my master, a good hosing, so I'm going to give him a further hosing. Since he's getting rid of me, you know what? He deserves it. I'm going to give him a good hosing. And so he talks to the creditors, and the whole reason he gives them a hosing is he's taking and he's making sure that his future will be secure. Now, this is key here. He's securing his future. He's making the most of this opportunity so that when he gets booted out of the house, so to speak, by the master, because you can rest assured as a manager, he was living right there and he was enjoying all the wealth of the wealthy landowner. And he was right there, taking care of everything. Now listen, a manager in those days is just like a manager in our day today. You know, pretend you're a manager at McDonald's, all right? You go, what? Yeah. You don't own that McDonald's, that franchise. The owner does, right? And as the manager, your responsibility is to run everything effectively and faithfully so that you're making money for the owner, right? Have you ever been in a McDonald's where the manager is a mess and the whole McDonald's is a mess? The service is terrible. The food isn't even done right. The restrooms are unclean. The tables are unclean. There was a McDonald's that I would regularly attend, and it was a disaster because of the manager. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I went to that McDonald's, I would automatically go, I'm going to have to wait 10 minutes for my food. And I knew that in my mind. Okay, now listen, you got to wait 10 minutes for your food at McDonald's. Guess what? Yeah, it's not fast food. Yeah, and guess what? You're not coming back. So if I had to, I'd be like, okay, here it goes. It's going to be the same thing, and it was the same thing every time. I cannot believe how many times they ran out of ice cream mix for the ice cream machine. What is so hard about keeping the order straight that's all done on a computer and should be automatic, and so having the stuff there? All right? Managers involved in all the workers' lives. The manager is the one who hires the workers. Now listen, if you hire a bunch of lousy workers for your company, for your boss, okay, you're going to have lousy output. It's not going to be good. You got to get somebody. Now listen, they don't have to be super, but it's got to be somebody who's willing to listen and follow through with what you tell them to do, right? That's all they got to do. They don't have to be fantastic at changing the trash bag in the trash can, right? They don't have to be fantastic at sweeping up the floor or making a burger and sticking ketchup or mustard on it. Simple tasks, but they got to do what they're told, and they got to, carry through. What we see with this manager is he sets it up for the future, where he takes and rips his owner off even more, and he gets the creditors to mark down what they owe. And the whole purpose was, so when he got booted out, guess what? These guys were indebted to him. So when he needed a job, he'd go to this guy with the wheat and said, hey, remember how I helped you out? I'm looking for a job. But you better keep a close eye on me because I'm a crook. And you're a crook too. We're both crooks. Would you hire a crook to take care of your finances? You have to be insane if you would. But look, this is the problem. Look what the master does in verse 8. Look what the boss does. The master praised the unrighteous manager. He praised that crooked manager, not because he was crooked, but because, what does it state in the text? He acted shrewdly. He praised him because he acted shrewdly. And this is the point that Jesus is making here to his disciples. He's saying, listen, I want you guys to act shrewdly. To be shrewd means that you take and you examine a situation and you make proper decisions so that your future is secure. Listen, guys, you look at the weather and you see you got some days of nice weather coming with no rain. You're going to act shrewdly, and you're going to get the hay cut, you're going to get it dried, you're going to get it baled, you're going to get it in before it gets wet. Am I right? Now, if you're foolish, you're going to let it get wet, you're going to bale it while it's wet, you're going to throw it in the barn, it's going to combust and burn the thing down. Yeah. Believe me, I know a lot of barns that have caught on fire because of that. Shrewdly, examining and thinking things through. And the master goes, man, that was really good thinking. Making these guys indebted to you. I mean, there's just, what? When you come looking to a job for these guys that you gave them a great big discount and you help them rip off an individual? These guys are going to have to hire that manager, right? All the manager has to do is say, oh yeah, by the way, I don't think you paid everything that you owed so-and-so. All right. How much do you want? This is the game they play in Washington, D.C. Okay? This is a daily game of corruption. And so everybody has the goods on somebody else. And all they do is say, would you like this to be exposed? And then the congressman or the senator goes, oh, no, okay, I will vote this way and I will do this for you. That's why you can't get any righteousness coming out of the Beltway. It's nothing but sin inside the Beltway. Now, what he states here is he praises them because he acted shrewdly, and he states this: for the sons of this age, meaning the unsaved, are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light, the righteous, the saved individuals. What's interesting with the term sons of light that Jesus uses here is it's only found in the Gospel of John, and then it's found in Ephesians and Thessalonians. First Thessalonians, Paul uses it. But the sons of light is what the Qumran community used hundreds and hundreds of times times to refer to themselves in the Qumran writings, in the Qumran scrolls. The sons of light. John the Baptist was part of that Qumran community, beyond a shadow of a doubt, being a son of light. And so Jesus states that here because that Qumran community was the one who stayed faithful to the Lord rather than the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the Qumran community at this time, the time of Jesus, was ostracized and was thrown out of Jerusalem and out of the priesthood, so to speak. And so they were all down in Qumran copying the scrolls. The Essenes, yes. Yep. Yeah, another sons of light, or the Essenes, as we called them. Oh, yeah. The Pharisees are listening, okay, and even the sons of light, okay, right away the Pharisees and the Sadducees, their hair goes up on their back because they can't stand the Qumran community, because the Qumran community are the sons of light, and they are exposing the darkness here in Jerusalem. And so he says, now listen, he says, the sons of this age are more wise, are really thinking about their earthly future, so to speak, and they're making all kinds of decisions and manipulations and plans and so on and so forth, so that they're accumulating all kinds of wealth and so on and so forth. And he says, you sons of light, listen to me. Why aren't you guys just as shrewd, but not in a dishonest way, in a righteous way? Why aren't you taking the time to think things through? And why aren't you making decisions so that you're storing up treasures in heaven for eternity? And this is what Jesus will say to them. Now I say to you, believers, you need to make friends for yourselves by the means of the wealth of unrighteousness, or by mammon. And so what he says, I want you to make friends with all the resources that I've given to you. Finances, material, your spiritual, your physical abilities, okay? Everything that I've given to you, including T-I-M-E, time. And make friends. Make friends with the unsaved. So I want you to use all your physical resources, all your wealth that I've given to you, so that when it fails, in other words, when the end comes for you, notice they, your friends, will receive you into the eternal dwellings, into their eternal houses. And it's because you were planning for the future, and because you were using everything that God has given you, and you were really praying for these individuals to get saved. They got saved. They're in heaven. And eternity's coming with a new earth, new heavens, and new houses. And guess what? Those that you've led to Christ will welcome you into their houses in eternity. That is a really neat picture. And Jesus says, this is how you become shrewd. You use everything for eternity. Not for here, not for now, but for eternity in what is coming. Not for the earth. And then he states this. Why? Because he who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. J.C. Penney, who started J.C. Penney, You know how he started out? Yeah. He started out sweeping the floors and emptying the trash cans and scrubbing the floors. And he was so faithful in that the manager of the store that he was working in saw that, and he got promoted. And he was so faithful then in the larger things, whether it was running the cash register or whatever in the store that he was in, and that he did it so effectively and so efficiently and, was focused on people. And the next thing you know, he just kept on moving up. That's true of many. It starts out because when you're faithful in the small things of emptying the trash cans and doing a great job at it, you're going to be faithful in the larger things. Now, if you're unfaithful in emptying the trash cans and you're letting half the trash in the cans and falling on the floor and there's mess all over the place and you let it go or whatever, you are not going to be faithful in something bigger. You're going to make just as much as a mess as you do with the small things as you're going to do with the larger things. And you can't say in your mind, oh, if only I had this, I would take care of that and I would do a good thing here. But with this doesn't matter. And God says, oh, no. Yes, it does matter. And no, it doesn't change anything. I know of a local individual that I think it was $1 million that they won in the lotto. And they were not faithful in the trailer that they lived in and in the things that they had in taking care of the trailer and so on and so forth. And I'm going in my mind, this is going to be a disaster. Guess what happened? Given $1 million, they took and blew every penny of it in a short amount of time. They started building a house, great big mansion. But of course they were blowing all their money as they went along. They were going all over the world and everything else, going everywhere, blowing. I mean, it was gone in 2 years? Not even that. $1 million down the drain. Poured it right down. But of course, they only got partway through with the house. And now just the shell of the house sits there in front of the trailer. And it's there as a monumental reminder that if you're unfaithful in the small things, don't think for a moment that you're going to be faithful in the big things and that the big things are going to change things in your life and that more money is going to be the answer for you, because that's not the answer. You can't be throwing yourself into debt expecting that I'm going to have a windfall and things are going to turn around for me. That individual that won the $1 million in debt, that house has been sitting there for umpteen years. Just the shell of it. Every time I drive by, I just go, phew, that is so sad. Now the Lord makes another statement. So if you're faithful in a very little thing, you're going to end up being faithful in much. So he's who unrighteous in a very little thing will be unrighteous also in much. You're giving too much money running the cash register, okay? Or let's flip it the other way around. You're given too much money by the person running the cash register. Okay? They give you too much change back. It's only $1. There's only $1 too much. And you take that $1, and you know it, and you put it in your pocket. You're unrighteous in that small thing. I guarantee you, you're going to be unrighteous when there's another temptation that comes your way that's much larger. See, what it is your character that God's looking at, and he's looking right into your heart. He's looking right into your mind. And so if you're not going to walk with him, you're automatically going to be on the unrighteous side. You're automatically going to be unfaithful in the small things, and you're going to be unfaithful in the big things. And your life is going to be a mess, physically and spiritually. He states this in verse 11. Therefore, if you've not been faithful in the use of physical things, physical wealth, material possessions, who will entrust the true riches to you? Two things going on here. Number one, I see that you're unfaithful in your own things that you have. I'm not going to let you come and use my stuff, so to speak. I always have individuals, because I got a lot of tools, asking me, can I borrow this? Can I borrow that? And I go, what are you, crazy? You had 16 chainsaws and destroyed every one of them by using them as crowbars and pry bars, and you think I'm going to let you use my chainsaw and destroy it? I don't think so, because I would not be a good steward. I'd be a bad manager of what God has given to me if I left you have it and destroy it. And that's exactly what you'd do to it. Yeah, you're all laughing. Yeah. So no, I'm not going to let you borrow it. No, I'm not going to let you. Matter of fact, what I've said to individuals that destroy chainsaws, I said, I tell you what do you need cut? I'll come do it for you with my own chainsaw, and I'll take care of all of it. And that's what I do. So that's even better than just borrowing it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Where was I at? Thank you. Verse 11. Who's going to entrust true riches to you? Now there's another side to this. I think what's going on here is Jesus is talking about true riches. And what he's talking about here is spiritual impact. And he says, now wait a minute, listen to me. If you're not taking the word and you're not applying it to your life, if you're not faithful in the little things that I'm telling you, do you think I'm going to give you a position where you can influence other people spiritually and in a positive way with true riches of the Word of God? Of course I won't. And what happens is we get a lot of false teachers, bad pastors, and I mean bad, you might as well just call them wicked. And we got all these guys out there, and believe you me, it ain't true riches in what they're sharing with the people sitting in their congregations or the people that are watching on television. They're sharing death and destruction with them. And the worst thing about it is so many of them are drinking the Kool-Aid. But God says, now listen, if you haven't been faithful in the use, just in your physical possessions that I've given to you, in other words, your possessions are not just for your own use. And they really aren't your possessions. How much of it are you taking to heaven with you? Absolutely, positively nothing. It doesn't belong to you. You're a steward. Yes, yeah, you're a manager. Yeah, you are. You're going to give an account. You're going to give an account on everything that God has given to you, all your wealth, all your resources, even your physical talents, even your spiritual gifts, and you have to give an account to the Lord as to how you used it. And he says, listen, I want you to be shrewd. I want you to really be purposeful in the decisions that you're making, and you're keeping eternity in your mind when you're making your decisions. I want you to work hand in hand with me and what I'm leading you to do at the same time. Verse 12. If you have not been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own in eternity? And it's kind of interesting, because what we see in the text is there's this correlation going on that how you use all your physical resources, whether it's your car, whether it's your house, whether it's your money, whether it's your tools, books, pots, pans, I don't care. It's how you use that is, and what you do with them is going to reflect in some aspect where you are spiritually. The thief says this: what is yours is mine. That's what the thief says. The selfish person states it this way: what is mine, and it's for me. It's all about me. Now, for the Christian, it should be this way: what is mine really isn't mine, it's God's, and God has given it to me to share with others around me. And so what it boils down to is what you think about your material possessions and who you think gave them to you. Oh, well, I did it. I worked hard and I earned all this, and this all me. Well, I think you forgot who gave you the good health, who gave you the job, who gave you the abilities to be able to acquire some of the wealth. All the Lord's doing. He could have easily stuck you in a wheelchair from day one, couldn't he? Yeah, you wouldn't have earned a penny. So he says, if you haven't been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own in eternity? I'm telling you, we're not all on the same level plane in eternity. We are not. It will be extremely evident how you lived your life here on the earth. Did you live it out of gratitude that Jesus saved you? Or did you get saved and then you lived your life in self-centeredness? For your own honor, for your own glory. And so this parable really, really hits the Pharisees between the eyes. Okay? But look how they respond. Jesus states this about us: no servant, and we're his servants, no servant can serve two masters, for either he'll hate the one and love the other, or else he'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon at the same time. Can't be living for wealth. You can't serve both. You're going to be devoted to one or you're going to be devoted to the other. And it's interesting, so there's this balance that we have to come up with in our lives in understanding that everything that we acquire belongs to the Lord, and we're to use it not only for ourselves and our family members, but for others that are in need. And as the Lord nudges us and moves us, there's needs all around us, and there's a balance in all this. You cannot serve God in wealth. Now, the Pharisees are extremely wealthy, all right? So the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, greedy, were listening to all these things, and they were scoffing at him and sneering at him and making all kinds of jokes about what he was saying. But then Jesus said to them, "You are of those who justify yourselves in the sight of men. But God knows your hearts. He knows your motives. For that which is highly esteemed among men is detestable in the sight of God. That which is highly esteemed among people is detestable to God." That's a pretty strong word. So when men gather wealth to impress others, and it's all about them, it's highly detestable before the Lord. That's what these Pharisees were all about. And so the Lord in this parable is saying, now listen, you got to be faithful in the small things, but that faithfulness comes from keeping your eyes on the Lord and living for Him out of gratitude, of being forgiven and having eternal life. And as you do that, He will increase what you have to be effective in ministering to others and their needs around you. He will increase your power spiritually. He will increase probably your finances if you're using them properly to help other people. And He takes and He sees, I can trust you. And He just works in your life and brings all the pieces of the puzzle together to bless you incredibly so that you are a blessing to those around you. That's how it works. Pretty simple. He states it clearly in this parable. But for these guys, the Pharisees, what a mess. They're just there to justify themselves in the sight of men, to make themselves look good in the sight of men. Oh, this is what everybody does, ripping people off and so on and so forth, and accumulating all kinds of wealth. You know, Jesus will say, you rip off widows, you rip off orphans, you guys rip off anybody you can possibly rip off and put the money in your pockets. You're a bunch of crooks. God knows your hearts. Jesus is saying to them, I know your heart. I know exactly your motives. I know exactly what you're doing. It has nothing to do with honoring me. And when you put a bunch of money in the offering plate, you bunch of hypocrites, you make all kinds of noise and blow a trumpet and everything as you give your offering. You let everybody know how much you gave. And it was all about you, for your own glory, for your own honor. Had nothing to do of your love for God. You just wanted the praise of men. Wow. And Jesus says to him, you got your reward in full, because that's all you're going to get, is the praise of men. And in eternity, it's a zero. So let's remember, it starts with our intimacy with the Lord and being faithful in the small things and in the time with Him and truly relying upon the Lord and striving to do what He wants you to do. Just talking to Him. and submitting to him. And it's a battle. But in that process, as you're faithful, he increases not only your spiritual power, but he will increase other areas of your life. Your abilities he will hone. You don't get better at what you're doing by being unfaithful, do you? You get better by studying and by looking and researching and knowing how to do your job better and more efficiently and more effectively. Just all common sense, but it does spill over into the spiritual. And it certainly spills over in that he wants you to do everything for his glory and for his honor, and so that you are laying up treasures in heaven, and that your retirement is waiting for you when you get there, and it'll be there for you for all eternity. Closing hymn.